This is Command Sergeant Major retired Dave Eustace with military recruiting experts. I'm here with Staff Sergeant Maxon from the great state of Minnesota. Just met him at one of my high performer seminars. And I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and kind of tell us your National Guard and your recruiting story. And then we'll talk about how you made mission this year.
Yeah, that sounds great, Sergeant Major. So like Sergeant Major said, my name's Sergeant Maxon. Grew up in Minnesota, graduated high school, ended up joining the National Guard. And one way or another, I ended up in the recruiting battalion where, I was a successful recruiter. I was pretty young though. And, had in the back of my mind, I want to go active duty. So I left recruiting, went active duty for 3 years, and then came back to a completely different recruiting environment. But like Sergeant Major said, got fortunate and ended up making mission this year, my first year back into the battalion.
Well, it's kind of interesting. We don't have a lot of people go active and then come back.
Yeah.
How does that help you in recruiting?
It helped me out a lot because when I first got into recruiting, I think I was 20. I hadn't even turned 21 yet, and I was really young. So, I made mission, when I started off, but just being so young and not having a lot of it, experiences besides going to basic training and AIT, it's tough for me to talk with parents. I could get kids into the office, pretty easily, but when it came down for PC, I kind of struggled not having a lot of knowledge, military wide. And, it definitely helped me grow and mature a lot going active duty. So, I think it made me a better all around recruiter and gave me a lot more experiences that I can use to recruit.
That's a good lesson for leaders out there, like hire someone a little bit more mature, because I do think during these times, being able to have some resiliency is really important because, we're running into a lot of negativity kind of all around. So I think that's helpful. So you're back in recruiting. Is this your first year back?
This is my first FY back, Sergeant Major.
Wow. So you got her done. And so when did you get your mission complete?
We got mission complete the last day of July.
So it's interesting you say we, so you're talking about your whole office?
Yes, that is correct.
So how does that work in your office? I think, that would be useful for people to hear out there working together as an office and looking at our mission.
So our office, I came back into recruiting and, I didn't start off as a station commander right away. I think I was back for about a month and a half, 2 months. And then the station commander at Maplewood got picked up for NCIC, and then I kind of took over. But, the Maplewood office, we try, I'm 13 Bravo like you, Sergeant Major. I don't like making things harder on myself than I need to. So, I get into work before everyone else. I kind of get, hey, I know what my week plan needs to look like for my entire week. But then day by day throughout the week, I kind of break down like, hey, we need to be hitting cold calls throughout this time. It's been successful for us, area canvas through this time, or, hop on Facebook and, kind of cold message people on Facebook. But I get the plan going. And then when everyone else gets in, I kind of distribute that plan. And even, our office goes on points. So our goal is to set at least a minimum of 2 interviews a day and then try to conduct one every day. So that's kind of how I run the office is, try to get your 2 points as fast as possible and get more than that because the bare minimum gets to the bare minimum, right? But I just, my whole goal for myself and my teammates is to talk to as many people about joining the National Guard that you can. What's the word I'm trying to look for? Anybody that meets our requirements, we're going to talk to them and see if there's a reason why they would join the National Guard. So we're definitely big in the volume game of talking to, probably more people than any other office does.
Well, it's kind of interesting because that I work with a lot of states and heard a lot this year about all the challenges in recruiting. And so what you're talking about is very, very simple. And
Correct.
and that's how I kind of look at it too. So I'd like to highlight that. Because you don't have any control over what the rules are. You don't have any control over maps, but you do have control over you and your office's effort. You know?
Yes.
So, and so you kind of mentioned cold calling. So that's interesting to me. How do your subordinates in your office respond to that demand that we're going to be doing cold calling?
You know, when I got here, the guy that I replaced, First Sergeant Herr, he was pretty big into cold calling as well. So, you know, it wasn't a huge culture shock that when I got here that I like to cold call, because I kind of came up under people that, you know, were good cold callers, and that's what they, you know, instilled into me. But I guess the volume that I like to cold call might have been a culture shock to them. So at first, you know, it might have been a little tough for some of them. But when they kind of, I was like, hey, stick with it. I promise we'll get results. Once they started seeing the results come from, hey, if you just, you know, cold calling sucks, you know, no one likes getting hung up on 50 times a day. But if you stick with it, you know, you can talk to the most people just sitting at your desk, you know, picking up a number versus, hey, I'm going to go area canvas. It's a lot harder to talk to that volume of people. So once we started getting the results, Sergeant Major, I think everyone kind of bought into it.
I would also guess, tell me if I'm wrong, that when you're doing that much calling, when they do have the opportunity to area canvas, you get a little bit more hustle out of your soldiers then.
Yes, that is correct. You know, big thing too that I noticed this year is, you know, even, you know, most of the time it's a parent's cell phone on the, you know, call list, but we probably had 3 or 4 parents that, you know, we got lucky to talk to the parents. And then, you know, a week later, the parent will call back and it's like, hey, my kid's doing this. What time or can we come in and start paperwork? So, you know, even if you don't get the kid on the hook, you can still sell to the parents.
That's interesting because I was doing some research on this generation, and it's something like 42% of Gen Zers are going to put a very high value on what their parents think that they should do. So that's, you know, that's almost half. So this is a numbers game. So, you know, that works out for you. So you mentioned the cold calling and the area canvassing. What are some other things that you've done to get that mission done, you know, 2 months early?
Yeah. You know, we're also pretty big into the schools. We do a lot of school programs, like Guard 101, like, hey, this is the National Guard, you know, and kind of tailor it to either going to college. You know, one thing in our area, Sergeant Major, that we probably end up selling more than college is, I know you kind of talked about this at the seminar, is a lot of the trade jobs. In the St. Paul area, you know, I don't know an exact number, but, you know, I'd probably say over half the kids that walk into the office aren't interested in going to college or interested in joining a trade. So, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, the trades and classes, you know, do a lot of presentations. One of our ADOS is a 91 Bravo, so that helps us out a lot. He's a great young recruiter coming up, but yeah, just, you know, being diverse in what we sell, kind of, you know, everyone gets sucked into, hey, we're going to pay for your college. But lately we've been seeing that not as many kids want to go to college. So trying to be a chameleon and just fit to what makes sense for us to get done with the mission.
So how many recruiters do you have in your office?
We have 4 AGR recruiters, including myself, and then 1 ADOS.
And everybody's made mission?
Everyone's made mission, correct.
So how many enlistments is that?
That was 57.
57. Wow. That's pretty good.
Yeah, thanks, Sergeant Major.
That's not nobody's joining. Yeah. And I'm very familiar with that area. You know, having been from Minnesota, that was my first recruiting team that I ran, was that area. We didn't have a footprint in Maplewood. We were in the East St. Paul Armory at the time. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that neighborhood. So a lot of those schools that you're working with, I would think that they would be considered not high payoff schools. Challenging schools.
Probably.
So with that, with the school, I think it would be interesting just to comment on, there's no such thing as a really bad school. There's always some in the population that will join.
Yep, that is correct. I would agree with that statement.
And so like, what's kind of the demographic makeup of the schools that you have?
It's probably mostly, middle lower class families living in St. Paul. Well, big diversity area. It's highly diverse. So, I guess some of our schools are less diverse, but a majority of them are diverse. Probably lower income schools.
And that's a pretty high population of Hmong folks, right?
Yes, that is correct, Sergeant Major.
Which I think is very interesting too, because over the last basically since First Sergeant Herr and some of the people that he's enlisted have become recruiters, that the Hmong population in the recruiting battalion and then the Minnesota Guard is really increased.
I would agree with that statement. Yeah, that is a majority of our enlistments are, probably Hmong or Karen.
And you're not Hmong, so
I am not.
I always like to speak to that. It's like, well, how do you get into that, group of people? You're not, you don't look exactly like them.
So yeah, I got lucky. First Sergeant Herr, definitely made a big impact in the St. Paul area and kind of got us that in. But when I'm talking, I am half Vietnamese, so that does help me, Sergeant Major. But when I'm talking to somebody different than me, it's just going back to, hey, how do I relate to this person, right? I know in your seminar you had talked about, hey, when you're giving out an Apple MD, like write down, what that person is interested in, and then remember it the next day, right? Because it shows you care. I've been in interviews where, I might have forgot to write something down, or I just couldn't remember. I feel like a real idiot when I'm interviewing that person. So it makes a huge difference by, hey, I'm going to jot this 3-second note down and then, relate to that person. Another thing is a lot of the stuff that I display on my desk, I might not necessarily love, but, it connects with our applicants a lot. So, just doing little stuff like that, making jokes with them, talking about the stuff they like, it definitely helps when you're recruiting people that aren't necessarily the same as you or don't come from a similar background.
Well, right now that everybody in your office is done, and what is the attitude of the people in your office right now?
Real positive attitudes. Yeah. They like me a lot right now, which is good. Yeah. So just prepping for next year, taking leave, taking time off to kind of regroup and get ready for next year.
And I think it's very interesting, because you're in a leadership role, which is really the first rung of leadership in recruiting, is running an office. And I think it is a very hard job because you live with the recruiters all of the time.
Yep, that is true.
And a lot of folks out there that will probably listen to this podcast are thinking, well, it's hard to get people to change, right? Or to get people to listen to you or whatever, but you've been able to get people to do what they need to do. And now they got their mission done early, and now they're taking time off. So just kind of, if you could speak to like how that transpired over the year, like from when you took over to now, what happens? Because my guess is they got a lot more confidence in you that what you're telling them to do is the right stuff,
Right. Yeah. I think the first month I took over, it was definitely, to be honest, it was our worst month recruiting. It was our lowest, monthly number, which, I guess I kind of I didn't want that to happen. I tried everything in my power for that not to happen, but it's always tough when there's a changeover. But I guess, I always say too, don't fix what's not broken. For Sergeant Hurst, a great recruiter, and he ran Maplewood successfully for a number of years. But I guess just them trusting me was ensuring that I also worked hard too, because I think they when I'm saying, hey, everyone needs to cold call 200 people a day, they're looking at me like, well, you're probably not going to do that. Why am I going to do that? And then they slowly started seeing that I probably called more than anyone in the office, and that I was also grinding with them, trying to, add that next processor to the calendar. So, I guess just it took time and me also putting in the hard work, Sergeant Major. I think if they would have just looked at me and my feet were kicked up on the desk, it probably wouldn't have thought into, the game plan. But a combination of me being out there with them, doing what we need to do, and then the results coming from everyone working hard as a team.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. I think it seems like, yeah, that's self-evident, but a lot of people don't do that. They're like,
Yeah.
well, I got appointed to this new job. Now I'm the supervisor. And they don't do as much. And I think that it's a big deal being where the recruiter is, especially as a station leader. It's also a big deal to walk the walk, and then when those things come up, they just get more confidence in you. They see that you're doing what they're doing, and there's nothing like results to build confidence,
Right.
You can't, if it works, we're going to keep doing it. So there's a lot of folks out there that are going to finish this year light,
Mm-hmm.
and recruiting is like the deployment that never ends. So right, we know when October is coming. So what would your advice to those individual recruiters and offices be? Like, maybe this year isn't working out the way that they had planned.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do something? How do you get a different result next year?
I think my advice would be just kind of look throughout your day. I know as recruiters, I think we're all guilty of this, as we spend a lot of hours at the office when we could, in reality, kind of reduce those hours by just while we're at work, be working, not going out to eat, or kind of lazy area canvassing, I call it, just going out to go out because you don't want to do something else. So, get a good schedule for, hey, this is what my Monday is going to be like. And when you're at the office, you should be trying to ask somebody to join every second throughout the day. Like I said, 13 Bravo, Sergeant Major, I like easy stuff coming my way. You can look at all the numbers all day. It's important to know your area, your demographics, and all the stats to everything. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, hey, how many people are you asking to join? Because I would guarantee that probably the best recruiters in the nation are the people asking more people to join than not. Because me personally, I'm kind of awkward. I'm not the greatest smooth talker in the world, but I still get them in, right? So I think it's just comes down to hard work.
Well, and that's something that, that's the drum that I beat, because it's true. But hearing it from another recruiter and a station commander makes a difference for people. It's like you have 100% control over how many people you talk to.
Yep.
That's fact. What I'd also be interested in is like, what do you do to stay motivated? We're going to get a lot of rejection. So what do you do to keep yourself motivated and the office motivated?
I guess knowing that at the end of the day, trying to get done early. I seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, being a recruiter that's been mission complete before, I know how great summers can be when we're not recruiting. But I think a big thing right now where there's not a lot of recruiters who have experienced that is, I don't bring my work home with me. At least I try not to. My wife might say otherwise, but I try to leave it at the office. And you can't fix problems all the time, while you're at home, right? So, instead of stressing myself out more about certain situations, like I said, I leave it at work, and when I get to work, then I get back after it. But I also PT a lot. I like to run. So, staying healthy, I work out, go for a run every morning. It keeps me, not mentally exhausted, makes me feel good. What are some other things I do? I guess just being overall resilient, Sergeant Major. I always keep a smile on my face. It is important with your coworkers and everyone else in your office. You got to get along. So, sometimes if it's been a rough week and, everyone's been working hard, giving 100%, we might do something fun as an office or go out to eat, go play a game on our phones with each other for 20 minutes, just, try and stay positive. So.
Yeah, I think it is like, there's a lot of people that get into recruiting. Maybe they're like max PT person, and after 3 years, they're in a weight control program and they can't pass the PT test. Yeah, I've been around recruiting a long time. I've seen that happen. And it's a small thing, but when you go for a run, you've accomplished something.
Right, exactly.
So you feel a little bit better about yourself. And that's kind of a basic thing, and kind of your program is kind of a basic thing, which is very interesting in that a lot of people have looked at this year and it's a very complicated thing.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's really not that complicated. So moving forward, like right now with 2 months where everybody's got their mission done, when will you start looking at that 1 October and having something going for 1 October?
Yeah. So, we're not, we honestly kind of started as soon as we finished mission. First thing we did was just contact our schools and set up faculty feeds. Because that's an easy way it's an easy way to recruit, right? Is to be inside of your schools. So set up faculty feeds. From there, we'll talk to the staff and teachers and coaches and try to set up some classes. And then here in about a week or two, we'll start cold calling and actively prospecting, at close to 100% again. Yeah. So just hitting those milestones of, hey, we need to keep in touch with our VIPs and, our schools to ensure that going into 1 October, we've already, started our school programs and are, reaping the benefits from being in our schools, along with the other things we do to be successful.
And that's kind of overlooked a little bit, because if you were still fighting to get one more, maybe you wouldn't spend as much time working on the forward plan, getting into schools.
Right.
So people do overlook that. And what you're talking about is like, hey, get in your schools, talk to as many people as possible, work when you're working. That's revolutionary stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So what is your objective as an office in October? How many enlistments are you thinking you need to get for October?
10, Sergeant Major. 10 is usually my goal every month, if we're being honest. Every time my NCIC asks what we're going to write, I always say 10, but that is ideally to have a good start of the year, just for our confidence. 10 at a minimum. Anything higher than that would be a great, first step into the next FY. But starting off the year strong, really sets a tone for what your year is going to look like. Going into the first month of the year, everyone getting behind, like I said, I'm resilient, but I don't want to put that, game face on that early in the year where I'm like, hey, stick with the program. You got this, right? I want to start off, set the tempo high and just be ready to get after it right away next year.
Well, what is your mission in per month?
Per month. So we haven't gotten our mission for next FY yet, but, it's consistently probably a 6 every month on average. If I, had to throw a guess out there, we probably averaged a 6 for mission every month.
So I just want to highlight that, because leaders that I've encountered in myself as a leader in recruiting is you set that objective for 10. The mission is 6. Probably incredibly rare to be light of the 6, because you have a higher objective. It's
Right.
chasing perfection and catching excellence type of thinking. And everybody that I've ever been around, and myself included, that have that higher objective are pretty happy with the results.
Hmm.
And probably a lot of your peers aim for that minimum number, thinking I got to get enough people to make that minimum number. And then invariably something happens, somebody drops off. We have an
Right.
expected result at MAPS, or they're never in till they're in, so things can happen. So now you might think of that as a very basic thing, but a lot of people aren't willing to do that, having that higher objective, especially when the people that you're leading probably know that the mission's 6.
Right.
Right. And so that is real leadership to get them to do it. So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do have one more thing that I'd like to get your opinion on. What would be the advice that you would give to that new recruiter, that maybe this year it was their first year, didn't go as planned? What advice would you give them to regroup and have a better FY23?
Yeah. I guess if I had to give any advice, it's probably just get comfortable. It's sometimes being uncomfortable, right? I'm definitely not a natural recruiter by any means, or really naturally gifted at anything. I just usually work harder than the next guy, and luckily it gets me to where I need to be usually. So just when I said get uncomfortable with or get comfortable being uncomfortable, it's being on the phones, right? Going up to a stranger at Home Depot and talking to him about the National Guard, right? Unfortunately, a lot of times in our job, we've got to put ourselves out there, and usually it's going to come back with a no. But when you get used to it and just brush it off, like I've seen a lot of new recruiters just get so in the dumps because, hey, this person told me no on the phone, and I'll respond like, yeah, I've gotten told no like 50 times already today. You just got to have a short memory and set up realistic goals so you can still get little wins and boost your confidence, and you're not just sitting there in a pile of no's all day being sad.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. I think there's a lot of stuff that people can use, individual recruiters and station leaders, people in leadership positions, and just keep doing what you're doing. And thanks for coming on. I appreciate you coming out to my seminar. I hope you had a good time in Nashville. And
I did, sir. Thanks for having me.
tear it up next year and keep on doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Sergeant Major. I know hopefully I gave some good advice, even though it's not rocket science coming from my end. But thanks for having me on, Sergeant Major.
You bet.